How long will you spend in traffic jams this year?
2.5 hours I've been sitting in damn traffic and nothing has ever been done about it.
Will it be 10 hours?
It's just chaos. I mean, like, this is the heart of the city. You know, how would you like it if your heart was stopped? Like, your valves would be blood couldn't get through to your veins or anything like that.
20 hours?
Look, I'm stuck in traffic all the time, and I'm on my way home from school, do you get me?
In fact, if you're a car owner, you're likely to spend over 60 hours a year stuck in traffic. And it's going to get worse.
The motorist will be fully trapped and imprisoned in his or her car.
Tonight, we meet the victims.
It taught me a lesson to use the corner shop in the future when I want to get some milk, instead of being lazy and taking the car to the supermarket.
And the culprits.
The initial call was that a horse was roaming loose on the M25 motorway system.
Of the traffic jams from hell.
We had some people who were actually in the vehicles all weekend.
It's Easter bank holiday. It's hot. And there's been a crash on the M4 near the busiest road junction in Europe.
Tango 91.
Guy Lawrence and Martin Harper from Thames Valley Police are on their way to the scene.
Go over.
First, they have to battle their way through the holiday traffic.
They've got two separate accidents. The one that we're going to deal with is the first one they've come across, which is now all on the hard shoulder. And just beyond that one is another accident where lane 3 is blocked. This is ours. Tango 91. Here we are now 3-5 with the ambulance as well. Right.
All right. We got a shunt.
Right.
But we got 2 casualties, one from each car.
Well, I was in the outside lane and I was slowed down because the traffic was piling up. Looked in the wing mirror and all I could see was smoke coming from his wheels.
This driver realized that the car behind was about to hit him.
And the next thing, he gets a wallop as a result of this person not paying enough attention and going too fast.
Thankfully, the cars collided at low speed because the traffic was tailing back from another accident further up the motorway. 2 passengers are taken to hospital suffering from whiplash, including the first driver's son.
I was fortunate because I could see what was going to happen, but my lad couldn't see what was going to happen, and he's gone forward, and I braced myself. There's nobody's hopefully seriously injured, and you can replace parts of cars. You can't replace bits of bodies, or you can't replace life, can you? I don't know what my boss is going to say about the car, but...
It's not yours.
No, it's a company car. Here we are. Yeah.
Neither driver was charged. No one was seriously hurt, but this very minor road accident caused a 2-mile tailback and delayed some drivers by up to an hour. It's a perfect example of how traffic flow on Britain's roads is on a knife edge. The smallest incident can trigger a massive traffic jam. Over 500,000 vehicles a day fall victim to traffic congestion. And the bill for delays alone on Britain's motorways is over £7 billion a year. Every month, 40,000 reports of jams and congestion are logged.
One little road work, one little accident, everything shut down. I think they should do something about it.
Terrible, absolutely terrible. This morning, it took me 2 hours to go 17 miles.
I've been stuck on that bloody road for 3/4 of an hour, mate.
The number one cause of traffic jams is accidents. A packed M6 in the rain. One car skids and sets off a terrifying chain reaction. There should be plenty of time for the drivers to react and stop, but the yellow lorry can't. The driver swerves onto the hard shoulder. Most drivers are now managing to brake, but it's all down to speed and distance. In the middle lane, the white lorry is in trouble, and over in the fast lane, cars are ploughing into each other. In just 40 seconds, 13 vehicles collide, causing a massive tailback. But it's not the seriousness of the accident that determines how bad the resulting traffic jam will be. It's the location. The Blackwall Tunnel, East London, a vital artery into the heart of the city. One December afternoon, the artery was blocked. Ignoring repeated height warnings, a truck driver crashed his vehicle into a gantry at the mouth of the tunnel. It was a moment of carelessness that was to have catastrophic results. 2 hours after the accident, commuter Emma Phillips left her office in the city and set off for home.
I left work and went through the Rotherhithe tunnel, and it was fine, it was clear. I turned left to go actually into the Limehouse Link tunnel, and halfway through there it stopped.
As we got closer to the rush hour, the traffic volume started to pick up, and it wasn't just congested, it was absolutely solid, and traffic wasn't moving for hours on end.
As the rush hour continued, more and more road users were getting caught up in the jam, like courier Perry O'Rourke.
It was tailing like to sort of like Covent Garden area and the West End. People going east were all stuck, which then moves it up to the A12, causes congestion there. I mean, it was even as far, it was like towards the M11 as well.
When it stopped, it just really did stop. You couldn't move, you couldn't turn round. Everybody's wound up, people's trying to pull out in front of you, you know, there's cars almost bumping into each other because they were all so frustrated. I was so upset because I didn't know where I was, I didn't know what was happening, I couldn't turn off anywhere, that I just burst into tears.
Emma's 60-minute journey had taken 4.5 hours.
There's massive tailbacks at the northern entrance to the Blackwall Tunnel tonight. That's after a lorry crashed just after 2 o'clock this afternoon. It took a number of hours to remove the vehicle, and the AA say it won't be clear to traffic until at least midnight tonight, and it could still be a major problem tomorrow morning.
A 10-hour snarl-up had trapped 250,000 motorists in the worst traffic jam to hit London in 20 years. All caused by one man's mistake.
You shouldn't be driving. I mean, there is enough warnings there that also he crashed into the tunnel, so he's obviously not a competent driver.
The guy wanted shooting, like, I mean, for the amount of grief that he did cause, you know, it was ridiculous. Like, I mean, virtually the southeast of England was sort of shut off just down to one crack.
But not all traffic jams are man-made. It's 6 in the morning on the M25, Britain's busiest motorway. On the left, southbound traffic flows freely. But thousands of commuters travelling in the opposite direction are stuck in a 4-mile tailback, caused by one highly unusual road user.
The initial call was that a horse was roaming loose on the M25 motorway system, going northbound. Obviously, we responded to that.
As dawn broke an hour and a half later, the horse was still going strong. Travelling well within the speed limit, he appeared to be heading for Brentwood.
When the first patrol arrived at the scene, what it encountered was a lone horse actually running along the carriageway, preventing traffic from flowing freely on the M25.
By now, the traffic behind had backed up for 7 miles. And rubbernecking motorists on the other carriageway were reducing southbound traffic to a crawl as well.
Myself and other officers did try to capture it gently by the use of ropes, etc., but to no avail. The horse just kept running off.
Finally, the police formed a roadblock to halt the animal's progress. He was then shepherded off the motorway and down a slip road, where he was eventually captured. It's not the first time that a horse has stopped the traffic. In 1993, again on the M25, this animal and one motorist had a lucky escape. While the traffic built up, the police struggled to capture the horse. After half an hour, they succeeded. And here it's a swan delaying drivers by deciding to take a walk down a busy road in the centre of Paisley. Police respond quickly and send in the flying squad. The swan evades them and reinforcements are summoned. Eventually, the errant bird is driven off the road and bundled into the back of a police car. Behind some wayward animals, there's a shamefaced owner.
So this is my pet pig, Spot. She's a rare breed, a Gloucester Roll Spot. She's half a ton of pork. She normally roams around my garden in the orchard, looking after herself. We don't worry about penning her in.
But one day Spot broke free and wandered onto the high street of St Osyth in Essex.
And there she lay down and went to sleep, and we think she was in the road for about 3 to 4 hours. Passing motorists called the local Clacton police station. They sent 3 squad cars up because she was obviously a major traffic incident at that time. But they couldn't shift her. I was informed, I couldn't shift her. I called in the services of my neighbour. He couldn't shift her. But eventually, probably because of the expertise of my neighbour and through her own volition, she started to turn around and go back home, which she did at her own slow pace.
Sometimes there's just no explanation for traffic congestion. Gridlock appears to set in for no particular reason. With no visible signs of accidents, breakdowns or roadworks, drivers are often left in the dark. The term gridlock originated in New York, and the man who invented the word has an explanation for these jams that mysteriously appear as if from nowhere.
You're riding along a road and suddenly it jams up, and then a little while later it seems to be wide open, and you're scratching your head and saying, you know, what caused that? Well, to a traffic engineer, they understand that there is a capacity of a roadway. And say the capacity of the roadway is, on a 3-lane roadway, would be 6,000 cars an hour, 2,000 per lane, roughly.
If the number of cars exceeds that capacity, the road enters what traffic engineers like Sam Schwartz call the unstable zone.
And so when you're in that unstable zone and somebody's driving along drinking a cup of coffee, whoops, they spill the coffee, they hit the brake for a moment, clean themselves off, and then move on. By hitting that brake, it had an impact downstream, and so the next car hit its brake, the next one, and soon the spacing between those vehicles gets closer together, and the highway that was moving smoothly at 40 miles an hour is now moving at 20 or 15 miles an hour.
And if the traffic is heavy enough, this chain reaction can bring entire sections of road to a halt, leaving trapped motorists baffled as to the cause. Like coach driver Alan Phillips, who was travelling north on the M5 when everything came to a standstill. He waited and waited, but nothing happened.
I hadn't any passengers on board, and I thought, well, I can clean the inside. I swept out the litter from the coach and emptied the ashtrays, kept an eye open looking forward, still nothing moving, so I decided to mop the floor.
Another half an hour passed. Still no sign of movement.
I decided, well, I can do the inside windows, cleaned those, still nothing moving, and I thought, well, let's do the outside. I took the step ladders from the side locker, cleaned the outside windows, washed the paintwork down, cleaned everything, put everything away, had another 20 minutes rest, and just about after 2 hours, 50 minutes, we were on the way.
With Alan driving the cleanest coach on the motorway. After accidents, the second biggest cause of congestion is roadworks. Every year, hundreds of thousands of holes are dug in Britain's roads, causing huge delays. In the London borough of Camden alone, 20,000 holes are dug each year.
We have 176 miles of highway in the borough, and that equates to about 1 hole for every 50 foot of highway each year.
I don't know where these things are going. They're just making it a million times worse.
The clown that organised this ought to be shot.
Many of the holes are dug without the council being informed.
We do not have an accurate estimate of this, but we think that there are well over 1,000 holes of that 20,000 that are not properly notified.
This year, Kentish Town Road has been dug up on more than 160 separate occasions.
They dig a hole, a couple of guys will come along, look at it, and away they go, and there'll be a small barrier around it for a few days. Total mystery, don't know what's happening really, and then somebody else will come along, cover it, then it's unearthed again. Complete mystery how they work.
And when roadworks go wrong, the results can be devastating. On the 7th of March this year, a 60-inch water main burst just off London's North Circular Road. This underpass was flooded to a depth of 25 feet, and a 300-yard stretch of road, which at peak time carries over 9,000 vehicles an hour, was closed for 3 days. The result, traffic chaos.
This is why a lot of the road rage is happening. Everybody's getting. We're starting to lose it now. Lose it, yeah, lose it.
I think it's shocking. I think the way they've organised this is disgusting. I left my house this morning at half past 6, and a journey that normally takes 20 minutes, I got to work at 8 o'clock.
We're going to park in the car park
and we're going to walk
home. We're walking home.
That's the only thing we can do.
I've been here for an hour and a half to move 6 foot. It's not good.
Off we go home.
That's us.
Cheers, head chap. See you.
Good night, mate.
Get Tony Blair out here and sort it out. Good old Tony.
In part 2, a freak storm wreaks havoc on the A1.
I felt it hit the ground and I just closed my eyes and I just thought, I'm not gonna here. I'm not going to survive it.
The day New York came to a standstill.
This is a big Irish mess.
And there's more bank holiday chaos on the M4.
Stay there.
The 4th of February this year, and savage gales sweep the northeast.
We'd had a windy night, blustery, strong winds, but nothing out of the ordinary. Then about 9:30 on Thursday morning, we suddenly start getting reports of lorries turning it over. A couple of light vans had gone over. And then suddenly, all hell was let loose.
In the hour following the first report, North Yorkshire Police would witness extraordinary scenes on the A1.
I just stopped a chap driving a 7.5-ton lorry carrying nothing but foam. And he was literally going along the road with 3 wheels on the ground. One was being lifted up. I said, do you really have to get there? Which would you rather do? Ring your boss and say you've had to stop before you blow over? Or you've stopped because you have blown over and wrecked his vehicle?
Truck driver Lee McCardle was driving up the A1 that morning when he was caught by a massive gust of wind.
It tipped me onto 2 wheels, 3 wheels. I tried to get back under control, but I couldn't. And then that's when I grabbed out the passenger seat, held on, pulled my chin up, and I could feel it go.
The truck careered through the central reservation, crashing onto its side.
I felt it hit the ground, and I just closed my eyes, and I felt all gravel going into my face, and I just thought, I'm a goner here. I'm not going to survive it.
The truck then slid down the carriageway into the path of oncoming traffic before finally stopping.
As I opened my eyes, I heard the engine revving. I could see all the smoking cab.
Miraculously, Lee had survived without a scratch. As the gales battered North Yorkshire, articulated lorries were falling like skittles, and the jam started to build.
I think we had a total of 17 blow over in some of what I can only describe as the worst conditions I've ever seen on this road.
1 hour of freak weather had resulted in 30 miles of tailbacks. And the gale had a sting in its tail. 3 days later, the recovery operation closed the same road yet again. And the elements have more ways of bringing traffic to a halt. It was on a Saturday in December when Val Speed and her daughter left Cambridge heading home to Walsall. When they reached the M6, they ran into a snowstorm which was causing a 7-mile tailback.
We got to the roundabout and looked down, and there was traffic stopped in either direction as far as the eye could see.
Conditions rapidly deteriorated.
We had something like 6 hours of snow, and in that time we had in areas anything up to 4 feet deep drifts.
Val and her daughter were resigned to spending a freezing night in their car. Suddenly there was a knock on the window.
And there was an Irish lorry driver. "Would you like to get up into the cab?" he said. And I thought, well, I'm not sure. And then he said, well, we're just about to open a bottle of red wine. Well, that was it. We'd had nothing to eat or drink since earlier that day. He discovered there was another lorry from the same fleet about a mile ahead. And this guy had got a box of Kraft cheese slices. So, to go with the wine, it sounded great. And all in all, it was a very pleasant, convivial evening.
Val and her daughter slept the night in the driver's cab. The next morning, they escaped the jam and headed for home.
Journey should have taken 3 hours. I actually got onto the M6 at 4 o'clock, and I got home about 4 o'clock the next day. So my journey actually took about 26 hours.
Val was one of the lucky ones.
We had some people who were actually in the vehicles all weekend. We didn't finalise the clearance and reopen of the motorway until the early hours of the Monday morning. Some 42 miles of motorway was closed during that period. I've been in traffic jams on the M5 going on holiday. I've been in the tailback of road traffic collisions. I've never been in one for nearly 48 hours. I'm not sure if I've heard of one anywhere else that lasted that long, where people were stuck in it for that length of time.
In America, the buildings, the cars, and even the traffic jams are bigger. But nowhere is the congestion greater than on the island of Manhattan. Each working day, more than 400,000 motorists battle their way into the city, twice the number of those driving daily into central London. As car numbers in Britain's major cities continue to rise, New York offers a taste of what lies in store. It's a city perilously close to permanent gridlock.
Okay, westbound LAE, we're stop and go, approaching exit
Shadow
51,
traffic in New York.
Are we going again at the top, or this is it?
Yeah, you are.
It's a service that provides the city with up-to-the-minute traffic bulletins on radio and television.
On the Verrazano, the lower deck is shut down for maintenance in both
All too
directions
often, the
until
reports
3
are of traffic grinding to a halt.
At minimum, a couple of times a month, New York City's in a state of gridlock. You have to think that at least once in the morning and once in the afternoon, you are going to get stuck in a major delay.
In 24 hours' time, New York will wake up to one of the bleakest days on the traffic calendar. And it's all because of a party. The city will celebrate St. Patrick's Day with a traditional parade through the heart of Manhattan. Tens of thousands of marchers will take to the streets. For those in the know, it's a day to leave the car at home. Peter Franklin has been a New York cab driver for 25 years. Tomorrow, he's taking the day off.
By and large, the traffic will be tremendous. And frankly, anybody who drives on St. Patrick's Day is especially stupid.
Yet in a few hours' time, thousands of motorists will ignore this advice and drive into the city. Back on the M4, bank holiday traffic is still bringing grief for Martin Harper and Guy Lawrence.
Basically, we've got a report between junction 6 and 7, which is like Slough and Slough West. There's a vehicle that's broken down in lane 2.
The vehicle the police have been called to has broken down in a highly dangerous position, the centre lane of the motorway. It's already causing long delays.
Just move over a bit now, blimey.
After accidents and roadworks, breakdowns are the third biggest cause of congestion.
There it is there, that's it in lane 2. As you can see,
There's your tailback.
there's the tailback just from that one vehicle.
Come on, Mr. Coach Driver, look in your mirror. Thank you.
After battling through the traffic, they finally reach the breakdown. The tailback is now 2 miles long, so speed is of the essence.
Stay there! Want to get into your vehicle, please?
Guy attends to the car, while Martin keeps the traffic at bay.
Don't think we're going anywhere. HP Tango Tango 91.
Jump in the passenger side for me, please.
91, can you arrange immediate removal nearest and quickest?
A vehicle is stuck in lane 2. Yeah, hold on to that to a minute. I think my colleagues managed to rectify it, have they?
What's wrong with it? It was an automatic. It was stuck in gear. They said that they tried to push it and nothing happened. I got the old leaded right foot. And,
is it all right, is it?
Yeah, it's fine. Yeah, he's gentleman's right. Yeah, the key's in ignition.
Although the car is now off the carriageway, it'll be some time before the tailback clears. A 15-minute hold-up on a busy motorway can take up to an hour to clear. Every year, there are 11 million breakdowns on Britain's roads. Some are more predictable than others. John Gladden frequently causes congestion, but it doesn't play on his conscience. He drives a 15.5-ton Armstrong Vickers tank, and when things go wrong, it's South London's motorists who suffer.
I had to pick a buyer up at the train station who wanted to have a little drive round on the tank before I took him off to a football match. But unfortunately, when we picked him up from the station, the tank broke down right in the middle of the road. I couldn't stay, so I had to take the client to the football match. So I left the police in charge, who were directing the traffic single file. And I came back very late in the evening, between 6 and 7. But this caused at least a 15 to 18 mile traffic jam. The police weren't too happy. And in the end, they called some experts out and drove my tank away. The tank broke down again. That caused another traffic jam. But eventually they got a very large pickup truck and it got taken to a police compound.
In the past 6 years, John has been arrested 6 times for obstruction and paid out over £4,000 in parking fines. Today, he's out for a spin through the streets of Brixton. The tank soon lives up to its reputation for unreliability.
It's broken down, very temporarily. We can't mend it, we just leave it where it is.
Fortunately, it's broken down in a side street, not in the main road. Next time, Brixton drivers may not be so lucky. Back in New York, and the party's about to kick off.
Judy, I love a parade, and this one is no exception. We're getting ready for a big one here now with 5th Avenue shut down from 44th down to 86th Street. 86th Street is also shut down. Those closures are going to run till about 3 this afternoon.
You don't want to be driving, but folks are already lining
At Shadow Traffic, they're predicting Midtown mayhem.
You will see closures. 5th Avenue shut down 44th up to 86th, and then 86th closed from 5th.
In the skies above New York, there's a spectacular view as early morning commuters crawl into the city.
Route 3 bound is basically solid from the turnpike all the way over into the tunnel.
And there'll be worse to come when they attempt to drive into Manhattan. Police have now closed off 5th Avenue as the parade gets underway. Meanwhile, frustrated motorists just have to sit it out.
Sucks. Bad. Car's overheating. Bad.
It's been 45 minutes. I can't get off the Madison Avenue.
For one unlucky driver, the parade is a disaster. His cab has been involved in a fender bender.
This is a big Irish mess. Who's gonna cost me and the people, not to Rudy Giuliani. I'm not going to be doing the report. You're gonna
The cab driver is furious with New York's mayor, Rudy Giuliani, for allowing the parade to take place on a working day.
Today is costing a people big, huge trouble, like me.
Put it out in Coney Island on the beach.
Make it a holiday. Take the bus, take the train.
Make the parade 2 in the morning. You make it 2 in the morning, I won't be here, and I'll be loving it.
Drivers stuck in traffic can suffer from a whole range of medical symptoms, from the mild to the extremely serious. In the worst cases, blood pressure rises and strokes and heart attacks can result. Each year, vehicle exhausts churn out pollutants in dangerously high quantities. 1 million tons of nitrogen oxides, 3 times as much carbon monoxide, 100,000 tons of sulfur dioxide, and 8 times that weight in hydrocarbons. These fumes can trigger breathing difficulties and asthma. It's now accepted that up to 24,000 people die every year from the effects of air pollution. And there's a potential new threat lurking in your car's air conditioning. Bacteria, which can cause sick car syndrome, a four-wheel version of sick building syndrome blamed for bringing on flu-like symptoms.
At one time, they wired up New York City taxi cab drivers, and they measured the stress on their hearts and other internal organs, and they found the stress on a New York City taxi cab driver in the middle of traffic was equal to that of an astronaut on takeoff.
Traffic stress can tempt some motorists to take ludicrous risks. This driver in Dorset jumps a queue of traffic and jumps a roundabout. These drivers on the M25 are avoiding a traffic jam ahead by reversing along the hard shoulder. One pulls out, narrowly missing an oncoming coach. This driver has missed his motorway exit, so he's reversing on the hard shoulder to have another go. He then pulls out straight into the path of a fast-moving car, avoiding a disaster by inches. Here it is again. On the M25, this driver is also using the hard shoulder to change direction. Unbelievably, in the face of oncoming traffic, he performs a terrifying three-point turn. And this motorist is avoiding the traffic by speeding down the hard shoulder.
Get out! Stop!
He ignores an order to stop from the squad car following him.
Brain of Britain here. Get the keys out, Chris.
Police throughout Britain are reporting more incidents like these as stressed-out drivers turn reckless. And there's one part of the day that is guaranteed to send every driver's stress levels sky high. Welcome to school run hell.
All right, you two, come on. Good boy, come on now, quick.
Marion Casey's daily routine involves delivering her 2 children to 2 different schools. Across town, van driver Martin Bray is heading to work in the same direction.
Oh, we're just starting to pull in now. Arsehole.
But he's about to run into trouble.
And we're being held up now purely because of people trying to get their children to school.
You know, if you have any kind of sense at all, that if you have a road with a lot of schools in, that the traffic is going to move slowly. So what kind of moron would sit in their van going, ooh, these blooming women, they can't drive their cars?
Yes, and Mum's getting out the child.
You know, come on, guys, why don't you take another route? We have to be there. We have business there.
Fitzjohn's Avenue in Hampstead is where Martin and Marion compete for territory. Within half a mile of this street, there are over 15 schools. It's a recipe for chaos.
Well, this is completely blocked off. Completely blocked. Now I'm out, and I've gone 10 foot.
A third of all children are now driven to school, double the figure 10 years ago. 1 in 5 journeys during peak time is now a parent on a school run.
Now, in an ideal world, we could get out of the house, we could stroll down to the most perfect school at the end of the road. Well, that perfect world ain't here. And as far as I'm concerned, I have found 2 very good schools for my children. To be honest, if I had to do this journey with them strapped to my back, I would do it.
Can't they do a sort of a, a school run share where one day Mummy A takes all the kids and the next day Mummy B takes all the other kids, and, you know, rather than arriving individually with their space wagons, or do what I used to do, that's bloody walk.
You see now, what is this traffic? Let's have a look. Oh yes, well there's a woman with children, she is all right. What are all these? Single people, look, in their cars. Now that's something people ought to do something about, single occupancy of cars. Try and get people to share journeys, that's probably the only way forward.
Although Marion and Martin each blame the other, they are united in their dislike of a common foe, the 4x4.
Here they come. Look, all these lovely off-roaders, and they never go off the road.
Probably their next door neighbour's got one, so they've got to have one.
It seems to me that the bigger the car, the punier the child. Punier? Smaller. These women in their big cars driving their teeny-weeny and thin children to school.
An hour later, the congestion has cleared. But come going home time, it'll be school-run hell once more, in reverse. After the break, who will win the battle of the jam-busting delivery men?
He hasn't tossed me yet.
What you can do to beat the jams. And tempers fray at the most notorious road junction in Britain.
2.5 hours I've been sitting in jam traffic and nothing has ever been done about it.
With 25 million cars on Britain's roads, gridlock can strike in the most unlikely places. When Margaret Moore went to the supermarket for a pint of milk, she made one major error. She forgot it was Christmas Eve.
I came out of the supermarket with a few groceries. I went to the car and discovered I couldn't get the car out of the parking bay. Wondered what was happening, eventually managed to get out and realised that the entire car park was gridlocked. So after a while I wondered what to do, and I telephoned the supermarket from the car. They said that they were trying to help, but nothing happened for another 20 minutes or so. Again I phoned and nothing happened. And after a good hour, I decided to phone the police and ask them if they could see it from their police office, which was right across the road. Tempers were fraying. There were a lot of older people there who were getting really quite frightened. I eventually got out of the car park an hour and a half after I'd got in. It taught me a lesson to use the corner shop in the future when I want to get some milk, instead of being lazy and taking the car to the supermarket.
As car ownership rises, motorists will spend more time stuck in traffic. During the rush hour in central London, cars spend half their time on the road travelling at less than 10 miles an hour. Like many British cities, the capital is buckling under the strain.
It's just chaos. I mean, like, this is the heart of the city. You know, how'd you like it if your heart was stopped? Like, your valves would be blood couldn't get through to your veins or anything like that. You know, it's just chaos.
Look, I'm stuck in traffic all the time, and I'm on my way home from school, do you get me? If I want to get home for my dinner, I expect to eat my dinner.
London is permanently on the verge of gridlock. The traffic and the fumes are slowly choking the capital to death.
I think it's absolutely chaotic. It has been for 15 years and it's getting worse, and nobody does a bloody thing about it.
For long periods of the day, London's roads are actually at capacity. We've done all that we can. We've improved junctions, we've synchronised traffic lights, we've used all the tricks in the trade. It just takes one incident and we can be at gridlock.
Edmund King believes a major accident in a strategic location like Trafalgar Square could bring the whole of inner London to a standstill.
Picture the scenario. Within 5 minutes, to the north of Trafalgar Square, you'd have gridlock at Piccadilly. At the same time, it would be gridlock down to Parliament Square. The whole of the Strand would have come to a halt. Quite soon, Waterloo Bridge would be lost. The A4 Piccadilly coming into London would grind to a halt. And then that would affect Hyde Park Corner, which again is a major junction. Within 30 minutes of disruption at Trafalgar Square, we'd see total gridlock to the north, south, east and west. The whole of central London would have come to a halt, and it really would not take a lot to do that.
Predictions like these are not scaremongering. Most traffic experts believe Britain's worst jams are still to come, and they may be just around the corner. Over the next 10 years, the number of cars on Britain's roads delayed each day by congestion is expected to rise to over 600,000 at a phenomenal cost. And it's going to get worse. It's estimated that 10 million more cars will be on our roads by 2025. In the meantime, there are two imminent dates when traffic Armageddon is virtually guaranteed. August the 11th will see up to 4 million drivers trying to enter Cornwall by a single route to see the total eclipse of the sun. And at the start of the new millennium, it's forecast that traffic lights at over 1,300 key road junctions will fail at midnight because of the millennium bug. Traffic engineer Stuart Beniston is an unlikely hero, but he was the man brave enough to tackle a junction whose very name strikes fear into the heart of motorists everywhere. The Hanger Lane Gyratory in West London.
The problems at that time were pretty horrendous. There were very long queues. The gyratory system itself was always getting snarled up, really frustrating.
Since it was built in 1980, Hanger Lane has become a sick joke for thousands of commuters. It's more famous for gridlocking than gyrating.
It does carry a lot of traffic, 8,500 to 9,000 vehicles an hour, which is, if we think in equivalent terms, is more traffic than one of the carriageways of the M25 at its busiest point.
Stuart studied the phasing of the traffic lights and made a crucial discovery. He noticed that one set of lights remained on red for 7 seconds longer than necessary, causing a build-up of traffic. When the timing of the lights was adjusted, the effect on traffic flow was remarkable.
After Stuart had found these 7 seconds and we had changed the timings, the most noticeable effect was on the Hanger Lane to the south of the gyratory, where previously we'd had long queues of traffic trying to get into the gyratory system, and they literally disappeared overnight.
Solving the problem of Hanger Lane was Stuart's finest hour.
We have Wembley Stadium just up the road, which at certain times feeds a great deal of traffic through the Hanger Lane gyratory. I suppose for a traffic engineer, Hanger Lane is a little bit like playing at Wembley.
But despite his achievement, Stuart doesn't always get the recognition he deserves.
2.5 hours I've been sitting in damn traffic and nothing has ever been done about it.
Yeah, well,
this has got to be the worst road in London.
There's obviously some major problem down the road at the moment. I don't know what it is.
There's a problem all around you if you look. Take the bloody cones away because nobody's working at them.
Yeah, there's been work down there for the last 2 or 3 months, hasn't there?
And there, go and have a look. There's nobody there, only cones.
No. Well, I know it's nearly finished now, but there has been, hasn't there?
You're talking out of your head, I'm sorry. You don't know what you're talking. You ask any driver here, they'll tell you. There's cones everywhere, not a workman in sight, congesting all this traffic.
It's reckoned that traffic flow at 1 in 10 of Britain's key junctions could be improved by rephasing the lights. In the meantime, some businesses are finding their own ways to beat the traffic.
This is what we call an Anthrotech. A nice little 3-wheeler bike, rapid response vehicle, able to carry loads that are more than you could get in a conventional bike. More than you get in a conventional bike, obviously not quite as much as you get in a van, but like the advantage is this, it can get through the traffic nice and quickly. It's fun to ride, that always goes without doubt, it's fun to ride. It's just like, it epitomises what the future is in London.
Red Star is introducing these bikes for deliveries in central London as an alternative to the traditional van. But are they really quicker?
This depends on the rider. What speed can I go at? Depends on how steep the hill is. But like, generally speaking, I don't know, probably about, on average, probably about 20 miles an hour. It's a bit slower than a normal upright because you've got 3 points of contact on the ground. But like, it takes a little bit more energy to ride it. But like at the end of the day, it's still quicker than a van in and around town.
We decided to put this new jam buster to the test.
There's Southampton, Upper Woburn, Woburn Square, Southampton Road.
We challenged Ray Doyles on his three-wheeled Anthrotech to take on van driver Jim McCarthy.
Up Drury Lane, onto the Eye Holborn. Round there it should be all right and all for me.
We chose a 4-mile route that cuts through some of London's most congested streets.
No deviation, mate, no deviation from the route.
Ray can follow me. Just follow the indicator.
And he can try and follow me. Where are we going? Up into Frith Street, Soho Square.
Jim's already driven the route this morning and is feeling pretty confident. He reckons that the traffic is light enough to give him an advantage.
Empty. Plain sailing this morning.
And they're off. Starting at the Red Star depot at King's Cross Station, the two couriers were instructed to deliver a package to an address in Soho Square and then make their way to the finish at the Aldwych. Ray gets off to a flying start. Jim's not too far behind.
Here we go. Traffic's clear enough for me. Oh, excellent. Look at this. Excellent. This will help me.
We have just left King's Cross and traffic was about half of the course.
Good news is, he hasn't passed me yet.
Ray's prepared to use every trick in the book.
That's what you can't do in a van.
Taking to the pavements isn't an option for Jim, and he's finding the traffic a problem.
The lights have just changed twice and we haven't moved.
Bit tight here, but where there's a will, there's a way.
Lights have just gone green for the third time. And we're still not moving.
Ray makes the drop 2 miles away in Soho, while Jim has managed only 1 mile of the route.
We're about 25 yards from the lights. No chance of going anywhere. Back to red.
Still no sign. Looks like we got held up at those lights. And with any luck, we'll get caught at these.
7 changes to go, 30 yards. Appalling.
Jim's finally made it through the lights, but he's losing heart.
I'd imagine Ray's finished by now. With his feet up in the calf somewhere.
After only 25 minutes, Ray makes it to the finishing line.
As I told everyone before, this is the future. This is the future. The quickest way in and around London any day of the week. Here's living proof.
Just coming around to Australia House.
There he is.
20 minutes later, Jim arrives.
Way!
The future for 4 wheels may be numbered.
Well done, mate. A valiant attempt. And the planned route, mate, if you don't mind.
I was going to change.
You'd need it to...
But even if you don't fancy taking to 2 or 3 wheels, there are steps that every motorist can take to beat the congestion. It may seem obvious, but surprisingly fewer than 1 in 20 motorists even bother to check the traffic reports.
Still sluggish right the way through to 7.
Research shows that Britain's roads are quietest on Sunday mornings, so travel then if you can. Avoid the M25, the M6 and the M4. They're Britain's most heavily congested roads. And the busiest single day of the year is when the schools break up for the autumn half-term holiday. This year it falls on Friday, the 22nd of October. And if it all gets too much, go and live in Wales. Wales has the lowest level of traffic jams in Britain. Failing that, just brace yourself for more traffic jams from hell.
Well, next Monday night at 9 o'clock, we present Tested to Destruction. And next this evening, we have Monday Night Live.